Hi, it's Patti. Welcome to a very special episode of Speaking Truth to Goodness. This is our final episode with Michaela. Today, we reflect on our journey from the very start of this series, focusing on degrowth, mutual aid, and the transformative changes we envision. We discuss the power of real, actionable tactics and the necessity of community and compassion in our activism. As we prepare to close this chapter, join us in looking back at the series and forward to the future of activism. Subscribe, like, comment, and follow us to stay connected to our ongoing journey of speaking truth to goodness. Here it is. I feel like we keep trying to get to the strategy tactics piece, and then we kind of we go around it a little bit, which is fine. We need that too. But I want to honor where you wanted this to go, where you wanted this to land. You know, you wanted to have concrete strategy,
right?
And I'm for that. I mean, you know, I'm all the way to tactics if you'll let me. I mean, it might be premature, but I would love to have a big list of tactics that sound fucking fun, and then be able to bust them out when we've got a job to do.
Well, my most recent thoughts about strategy have to do with not so much challenging companies like Zenith, though I think that needs to continue, but helping people understand what the stakes are in terms of degrowth. That we have already, on planet Earth, reached the point of ruin. I mean, we've been ruining the planet for years now, and we have to prepare ourselves for additional great amounts of sacrifice. A lot more people are going to die. A lot more people are going to lose their homes. A lot more people are going to go without food. That's just the way it is because we have not curtailed our use of fossil fuels nearly early enough. Mm-hmm. So part of my strategy has to do with building up mutual aid networks, not just for the sake of helping each other, but for the sake of building relationships that can then turn to rebuilding what's left in whatever time that can happen.
It sucks because that is kind of where we're thinking. If we're being realistic, that's what we have to be thinking, is that we aren't going to achieve anything before the degrowth is just starting, and it's going to hurt.
Right. And previous to this time, I didn't even consider mutual aid as part of my activism because I didn't think the consequences of our treatment of the earth were going to be so dire. But now I'm looking at my own immediate situation in my 10-unit condominium association, and we have an annual meeting coming up this Sunday, and I'm proposing that we take up developing a mutual aid structure process when we have more extreme weather events. You know, like it happened sort of in the ice storm where several of us turned out to chop and scrape the ice off of our walks and steps. Mm-hmm. That was spontaneous. It wasn't organized. But it's the kind of thing that we're going to have to do more of with and for each other.
Yeah.
And not just the people in my condominium association.
Right.
And maybe through that kind of working together, we will begin to talk about what else we need to do given what's in store for us. You know, what happens when the grocery stores don't have enough food for us? What happens if most of the child care centers shut down because they can't they can't raise enough money to keep operating? You know,
Or SARS-3, COVID-2,
yeah,
decides to come, right? I mean, that could have been so much worse. Mm-hmm. There are many things hanging at the periphery that would reinforce the need for us to help take care of each other.
Right, right. So maybe I'm just thinking off the top of my head in this moment now, but that maybe that's the path or the strategy we need to develop at this point, that it's not a strategy that we come up with out of some abstract conversation, but our real world experience with each other about how to help each other when things get tougher and tougher and tougher.
Yeah. I've spent a bit of time thinking about mutual aid stuff. And to me, mutual aid is the most kind of solution to so many things and I cannot believe that we miss it so often. Because, okay, I was thinking just now as you were talking about that, I was like, well, mutual aid, isn't that what humans would do if there was no capitalism?
That's what we did do historically before there was capitalism.
So like we're talking about mutual aid like this new idea. Oh, I was like, well, no, that's just fucking being a human and taking care of the people we live on this planet with, you know? We're not small nomadic tribal people anymore, but we can still take care of each other. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this idea that mutual aid is how anything's going to change for real.
Because I think, because our society in particular is so individualistic that we haven't recognized the need to help each other.
Correct.
To be mutual in our assistance.
But that is not the fault of the people. That is the marketing that has convinced us of that.
Well, true, but we've swallowed it hook, line, and sinker.
Sure.
You know,
conditioning
in my condominium association are not at all cooperative.
Oh.
Except in rare instances where, we all have to get out to the street. How are we going to get over the ice? You know. So it's very immediate and it's very short term, and we all retreat to our own little apartments afterwards. Mm-hmm. There's no further discussion about, what are we going to do when this happens again? You know. So it's going to take learning from each other experimentally. I've never choked on peanut butter.
I was going to say, peanut butter got you, didn't it? I think you were saying experientially we haven't really had to rely on each other.
Yeah, we can't. It's very hard to have a conversation that might lead to persuading others that we need to be there for each other when there's not an immediate need, like taking care of the ice.
That's true.
Because that's not how our culture has developed. And so we're all supposed to be able to survive on our own.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we need this crisis, this climate crisis, to teach us how to treat each other better.
The thing is, people do not act until it affects them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that makes an even stronger case for working with the marginalized communities, because they already get that it affects them, right? They aren't hiding in their like white suburb thinking it's not real.
Yeah, like the Latinx community that Jerry talks about.
Yeah.
But not all of them are there either. I mean,
True.
The individualism has affected all of us.
Of course. Absolutely.
So I find myself, I've done just tons and tons of reading and study and discussion over the decades, over the last 50 years,
Yeah.
about how to create a more cooperative community society. And it's been helpful, but it has not driven me to think in more concrete terms about how to be there day in and day out for other people.
Mm-hmm.
It takes, unfortunately, it's taking this crisis for me to start thinking, just start thinking about in those terms, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of times the people who do have the willingness to give of themselves to others, you know, potentially they were kind of raised in a way to make them a people pleaser. And so they're following that conditioning. So it looks on the outside like, oh, they're just giving so much. It's like, well, yeah, they're doing that out of their trauma instead of out of an understanding that when they give of themselves, they should also be expecting that to come back to them. You know, and I think that's a thing in activism we get wrong a lot too, is we think, well, if I just work harder and I give, and it's like that's why we burn out. That's why it doesn't have the sustainability we want it to have.
And that very thing happened to me some decades ago. I just had committed myself to what we all considered, those of us in the organization I was part of, to a revolutionary strategy and life. And it meant that we were putting every available hour into that work, along with whatever we did to earn money or take care of our families, or, you know. And I burned out in pretty short order.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was very much against the grain of the culture, and everybody, except for the people in my organization, virtually everybody else around me, neighbors, friends, you know, they weren't part of that. They weren't buying into that. They weren't putting their energy into that. They were good people, but they didn't see the need to do that.
Sure.
So it wasn't reinforcing in a interactive, supportive way.
Yeah.
I ended up feeling pretty isolated, even though I had this small group of people around me who were trying to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was too obvious that most everybody else just wasn't with us.
Yeah.
So, and it was too easy. This was the late 70s, early 80s. It was too easy to just go back to taking care of myself. You know, it wasn't I mean, we knew that climate change was happening at that time, but it wasn't talked about. It wasn't a threat in most people's minds. You know.
So what was your main force of your activism at that point? Was it like class and race kind of?
Mostly it was trying to educate other people by having public events where we would speak, and we would go door to door with our literature, and we would pass out the literature in supermarket parking lots.
About what? Okay.
Talking about, more than anything else, wedding collective political change with personal change. That our message was, if we want the society we want, that is cooperative, caring, equitable, etc., then we have to change ourselves at the same time.
Huh. I think your message holds.
It was a great message, but the problem was that we spent all our time talking at people and not listening enough.
Oh, interesting. Well, fascinating, because I was a little triggered just now when you said that you were out like handing out pamphlets and stuff, and I was like, oh, it sounds like religious tracts, then it like has me all up in my heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. People aren't here for that now.
No, we went door to door just like the what were the people that used to come to?
Oh, like the JWs or the Mormons?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we were just like those religious people, going door to door and saying, "You have a few minutes. We want to convince you of our way of living."
Oh God, that makes me feel itchy.
Yeah.
But it's like also I see that it was a much better reason to do such a thing than some of those other reasons people did that. Yeah, but you're right. Or it is just like it. And kind of with a similar goal, right? Because the religious folks, they also, to them, want to build a better world.
Right.
So, makes sense that it would use a similar tactic. But if we know those tactics aren't going to be the thing for the current generation, then we need new tactics that don't drive people away screaming. And I do think a big part of that is being able to show, I think your focus on mutual aid has a better chance to bring people in than being out there with the message of, it's all ending, it's gonna burn. Because people are very uncomfortable with that. Like, yes, they do need to know it. Yes, they need to hear it. Yes, they need to do things that fix it. But would they come to a talk about that more? Or would they come to a repair clinic when they've got a broken zipper on their tent? I bet they'd come to the repair clinic if they had a broken zipper. And that's a place where it's not even, you don't even have to tell them. It's being demonstrated right in front of them that people can work together to help each other. Our products can be fixed instead of replaced, therefore reducing the burden on the planet. So it's an actual embodiment of those things through those types of mutual aid events. I love it.
And I think after you've gotten into that for some time with other people, you need to start talking about what else is possible.
Yes.
In terms of building the community that we need and all the institutions that would replace those that are breaking down. And,
This is where I get a little bit into trouble when I'm at Birch. The
Birch.
food. Yeah, Birch is the distribution center for food banks in the area, or at least one of the ways that happens. Because I've been there working for my volunteer shift and just chatting with the people I'm working with and realizing or saying things like, hey, look at all of this abundance. And this is just a few hours a month by all these people giving just tiny bits of their time. And yet every week they can walk away with more waste food that will feed their family. Like they have more waste food than they could even eat all week. And that's all coming from this collective effort in that place. And so I've leaned into that in some conversations and floated the notion that, well, hey, look what we can do with just a few of us in this warehouse making food get to 1,000 families every week. Why can't the whole fucking food system work that way? Where we've got some people that are, running the show at the producing level, at the packaging level, at all of those. Some people are dedicated, more or less full time to that. But otherwise, there could be a whole bunch of people who don't have one dedicated role like that, but they give to their community in small, chunks. I'm someone that would be bored as hell doing the same thing 40 hours a week or even 30. And so if I could build a life where I didn't have to deal with money, but I knew that on Mondays I was over at the food distribution location, and Tuesdays I was, being a runner at the hospital to make sure that things got whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I have this vision in my head that this mutual aid could blow all the way up and we all have our place where we fit and we work together and just do it because like that's the only thing that's making things happen. We think we need money to make things happen, but no, we don't. If all the people who were doing those things had all their needs met, they wouldn't need money and they could still do that. Now, I know there's objections like, oh, human nature, if we just had everything provided for us, we'd be so lazy. Well, maybe a tiny percentage would just like not get on board with the cooperation thing. But I maybe have too much hope in humanity to think that, you know, after some rough years, we could catch on to that notion.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is people doing the work, helping each other voluntarily. That's not a free ride. That's, you know.
I agree.
Because the vision is that our community would have opportunities like that for everyone.
Yes.
The ones that, whatever suits you.
But yet, do we make it a condition of you get your food if you do your work? And that feels weird.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we say everyone gets shelter, basic income type stuff, right? Everyone, because you exist, deserves to have some sort of shelter from the elements, deserves to have food in your belly that won't poison you. And I would be content in a world where that was provided to everyone by everyone else. And yeah, if there's some people who are legitimately, they've been through shit or whatever, and that's where they want to stay, and they've got their little micro house or whatever we, can make, and they've got some basic food coming in, and if that's where they want to stay, and they're happy there, I mean, okay. But I think people who are cared for and know they're cared for and don't have existential worry about shelter and food are going to blossom and are going to find things where they can give, and I think it will fill them up.
So is this a conversation you've tried to have at Birch?
Kind of. Well, so when I talk to people at Birch about this idea of, hey, we could just do all food like that, I have linked it just ever so slightly to some of the biblical notions of sell everything you have and give it away and, work with each other kind of stuff. It doesn't land all that well.
Right. Well, I think increasingly we're all going to be forced into considering running those kinds of operations for more and more people. That's what the situation calls for.
Well, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. Birch isn't even there to serve like the poorest of the poor. They're literally not there to do that. If you're eligible for SNAP benefits, you cannot participate in Birch. And so they say it's serving the working poor in the sense of like, you don't quite qualify for these benefits, but yet you still can't make it. And why is that making us develop more nonprofits instead of being like, that's a problem and maybe we should make it work differently? But,
Yeah, and then you get into having to make legal changes, pass laws that accommodate that kind of business development, and not restricting what you can talk about on the work site.
Yes. Well, anyway, that went off the rails a little bit, but...
Well, no, I mean, because we started talking about mutual aid, and that's a form of, or at least it's moving toward mutual aid.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we just have to, one of the cultural changes is that if we're involved in something like Birch, we have to start changing our mindset from I'm the giver and you're the taker.
Yes. Yes.
That this is indeed mutual, that we need each other. Maybe I don't need it today and you do, but maybe next week or next year I'm going to need it.
Exactly. Well, and that's how I think that Birch has lasted as long as it has in my life, that I've been willing to give my time to it. Because it's not just me going out there for a couple hours a week and that's it. I get to go through and shop. And it's a huge supplement to my family's grocery budget. So, I suppose the value of each of those contributions could be weighed and someone could get, really nitpicky at parsing that out. But what I know is that it takes a big effort for me to get out there and give half a day to being out there volunteering. I help train new people on how to do the shopping there and that sort of thing too. So it's an effort from me. And if I was just doing it for the pat on the back and the, what is the thing you get for when you donate to a church? It's they give you back the tax thing to say that this money was given in exchange for, what is it? An intangible something is how it's said, I think, right? Intangible benefits. And so it's a way to say you donated this, but you got something. It's something you can't really see, right? So there's that. But so if you're giving of yourself, if I was going over to the food bank and volunteering and just going home again, I think after a while it wouldn't be sustainable, right? For one reason or another. But since I go there and I do that, and I also pick up groceries for the week, well, I'm super happy to do that. And I don't even care that it takes me two and a half hours longer than it would if I just went to the grocery store. I'm happy to do that because it is benefiting me in enough ways that my family isn't lacking because I gave time to that place. And I feel like it's honoring my time, right? And I know, that's the intangible part, is I know that I'm contributing to 1,000 families getting fed that week. And I'm taking 1,000 families worth of food out of the waste stream. That's fucking cool. I'd love to say I would do it for nothing in exchange. And I probably would, because I care enough. But it would burn me out. And I wouldn't be able to continue it forever. Right? Yeah. I mean, it might not be forever anyway, but you know what I'm saying? Okay, sorry, I'm so rambly, but the church I grew up in, the cult, Doomsday Cult, the guy, Herbert W. Armstrong, who started it, he would rant. I mean, he was pound the podium kind of preacher. So he would rant about this being a get generation instead of a give generation. And, he wasn't wrong, and I think I've taken some of that mindset with me into adulthood, and I see it, but now I have the nuanced layer of if someone's giving, someone is getting the thing that's being given. And so all of a sudden that was a little bit of freedom from whatever guilt I felt about I get to take home all this food for 2 hours of work, right? It was no, that's an acknowledgement that I gave because look, it was given to me too. And we're both better.
That's what Native Americans call reciprocity.
Oh, there you go. Or mutual aid, I suppose, is right in there too, although that comes with some more, technical things about it.
Yeah. Reciprocity is more of a spiritual term.
Oh, okay.
But it also is a practical way that traditional Native Americans have lived.
Sure.
And it doesn't. It's not in reference only to what happened between people, but between each of us and the earth. Mm-hmm. So you don't take any more from the earth than you give back.
Wow. Yeah. That again, it makes me think. Oh, that's how humans do it without capitalism.
Right.
It just is. If capitalism just didn't exist, that's just what humans would do.
That's what they have done for a long time. Mm-hmm. Most of us have lost that skill.
I mean, they dealt in power in other ways, though, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they weren't perfect, and there are even instances where areas of land or areas of nature were defiled by Native Americans. But over time, they kept learning from their mistakes.
Yeah.
They didn't repeat it the way our culture has.
Right.
They didn't infuse it with a notion of material personal gain.
Right. I mean, the whole idea of material personal gain makes so little sense. Especially to a population that by all accounts should be doing well for every human within it, with such abundance.
Well, we thought that was the path we were on,
Yeah,
or at least we convinced ourselves of that.
sure. Well, if you weren't convinced of it, you aren't probably going to work on it. But it seems like mutual aid has stuck with you as the idea of something that's still
grabbing me. I would say it hasn't stuck with me until recently, but it's grabbing me now because it seems the best way to respond to the urgency of the situation. Mm-hmm. Like we can't shut down Zenith Oil in the foreseeable future. We can't change how our local government and our fellow citizens make decisions in the short term, even though this restructuring of Portland's local government is in the offing. There are a lot of people who are very hopeful about what that's going to produce. I'm enough of a cynic to think that there's a good chance that it will be commandeered by traditional politicians who will figure out a way to gather power to themselves once again. But it's a good attempt. I think it's worth trying, and it certainly is a good turn that we're going to have more people serving on the city council with the chance of them representing more diverse communities.
Mm-hmm.
But the Wheelers of the world are still going to try to hold on to their power as much
Sure.
as possible.
Yep. Well, and isn't that the beauty of mutual aid, is the Wheelers and the corporations of the world, their power lies in the financial aspects. But mutual aid renders that money a little bit more moot. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yeah. Our willingness to just do for each other it's a model for divesting ourselves from capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speaking of generational differences around stuff, I guess, it makes me think of the Amish. Not really generational difference, but, they act in the ways of a previous generation. Yeah. And they are very good at that. Barn raising?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We could learn from that.
Yeah. Instead of building barns, we could build schools and daycare centers and community health clinics.
Well, right now we've got buildings all over the country that once held office workers who no longer go into those offices. And those buildings, well, okay, I'm going to jump a little bit. It should be everything you just said, and it should also be indoor grow facilities.
Yeah.
Because growing food indoors is food that isn't destroyed by a freak storm.
Oh, yeah.
I have big feelings about that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hydroponics?
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the whole idea of adaptability is probably my biggest one when it comes to climate change, because I think I'm kind of with you. Maybe it's cynicism to think, what if we don't change those things? What if we can't get Zenith off the land? But in the meantime, if we're building up mutual aid systems, we as the people not in control of that part of power are taking our own power and creating a system that doesn't require their inputs. And then we're ready when climate change inevitably gets worse and we're all left out in the cold, so to speak. If we've started now, or, whenever, with this mutual aid and the like, then we're more prepared to handle it with fewer losses.
Yeah, we have at least some of the systems in place to provide for each other.
Yeah.
So it requires building out those kinds of organizations and structures and processes. Simultaneously requires us to divorce ourselves from the existing organization. Like I am a medical client of OHSU, which is the biggest single medical institution in the state. And because of the health insurance I have that I inherited from my partner when she died, I have really good health insurance.
Good.
So I pay very little for my own health care, and I can get virtually anything done there. Like they would have paid for me for gender affirming surgery if I had decided to go ahead with it. So it's liberal in the best ways.
Yeah.
And at the same time, their primary care doctors are directed to spend no more than 15 minutes per patient every visit. That's just not happening for lots of people, maybe most people.
Yeah. How are you supposed to understand everything about a human body in that time?
So it's so top-heavy with specialists. There are a whole lot more specialists than there are primary care doctors now, because that's where the money is, and less pressure to see so many patients.
Mm-hmm.
They still have standards for the specialists too, but they're not as exacting. So my point about bringing that up is that I'm pretty addicted to that medical system because it serves me well. I have the privilege of belonging to those institutions. And to replace that with a different system of medical care seems especially daunting because of the economic and legal structures that surround how we do medical care in this country. To say nothing of liability issues.
Right. That one's sticky for sure. I mean, I guess I have long thought that a key piece of making changes to these structures that keep us doing what we don't want to do is to change the legalities. This is where I talk crazy. Change the legalities of what a corporation is actually supposed to accomplish, because a corporation's reason for existence and legal directive is to post a profit that is higher than last year's profit. It has no directive to do well for people or the planet, but we've legislated that they need to make money. Well, hello, we're the ones that made those laws, so our laws could instead say you have to show proof. If you're going to exist as a corporation, you have to show proof that you made life better for more people this year than you did last year.
Yeah. Which in a lot of ways is a much higher standard.
True, and not numbers, so harder to measure, right? And so how do we do that? Like that, but that's not a reason to throw out the idea.
Right.
There's a billionaire out there, I forget his name. He understood this. or understands this, and he has done a few TED Talks, and he's trying his hardest to talk to other billionaires. Like, here we are trying to be white people talking to other white people. He's a billionaire that's like, hey, everyone, if we're not careful, the pitchforks are coming.
Right.
And he's very no bones about this. He is trying to say that, like, hello, billionaires, y'all need to do better. You need to make sure the people below you have a good life.
I think I've seen that guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he looks very like a billionaire. Like you could step off a yacht, right? But he sees it. So good on him for even being willing to say anything. We keep going through this till we land in a place where we have something bigger to do than seems reasonable. But I think it's still worth talking about. You know?
Oh yeah, it's huge, but it's undeniable that we have to, over time, over a long time, we have to do it all.
Mm-hmm. But mutual aid is something that we can do right now, and it is happening. But we need more people. Did we do it? Did we solve the world's problems, Michaela?
Oh yeah, I think so. We could go home now and eat paella.
This feels a little more concrete, or like we've pulled away some of the layers a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I certainly, even though I was, explicitly wishing for that from the get-go of our conversations, I wasn't bringing any particular concrete ideas to it. What strategies are doable, and I have a lot of oughts in my head. We ought to do this, we ought to do that.
So then maybe our job is to come up with tactics that we think will move the needle toward the goal of that overall strategy. Not that it has to solve it. Well, this is the other piece that I think is going to be a big, like, how we think about activist work is switching from, okay, we have a strategy toward this goal. And I think we still need that. Like, here's the thing we eventually want. But instead of making a plan that's set and we know we need this, then this, then this, it's this word iterative. So it's like, I think this is the right thing to do right now, and let's see what happens. It's what, was it you or Jerry was saying, we haven't taken that time to pause and reflect and be like, okay, what worked and what didn't out of that. But that's exactly what we need to do. And like on the fly, we need to do that.
Yeah, I was saying that's what I would like to see us, XR, do in our retreat in a couple of weeks. But I don't know that it's going to happen because there's such a desire to be acting, to be doing actions. And I think that feels good at some level. But there's also an admission on the part of many people in XR that we're not being effective. We're not getting where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's a social club to soothe our own feelings about what's going on in the world, I mean, great, but then that's not what our stated goal is.
I don't think anybody would want to admit that that's what it's about, but that's a lot of what's going on.
Because it is fun. If you enjoy the dynamics of a day of an action, like the plays, the music, the setup, and that's super fun for you, great. I mean, we need those folks. Mm-hmm. But just doing that piece isn't the whole darn thing. Right.
And the way I got caught up in it, and continue to be caught up in it, is that it keeps me from feeling despair.
Yeah.
Even though I don't see us being effective, it's better than being depressed about the world, which is what I was for a while.
But that's connection with people too.
Yeah.
And you get to, at least, no matter what the outcomes of those actions are, then you've got a, like, so what am I looking for? That that space then to have someone to bemoan our situation with, or, to know that if we're going to be in this terrible situation, at least we're in it together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very negative term for that is pity party.
I think you're right.
I think probably the thing that more people than on any other issue, more people said what was most valuable to them about XR was the social connections, community, relationships.
Mm.
So it's important. I mean, that's, can't be what it's all about. But
Right.
without that, we wouldn't even attempt the other stuff.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
That was good. And with that, we conclude not just today's episode, but our wonderful series with Michaela. From strategies and tactics to deep dives into degrowth and mutual aid, we've covered vast landscapes of thought and action. This final episode rounds out our discussions, focusing on the power of community, the importance of real support systems, and the hopeful prospects of upcoming political changes. Jerry, Michaela, and I thank you for joining us on this transformative journey. Continue to engage with us, keep the conversations going, and remember to carry forward the compassion and critical thought we've shared. Subscribe, comment, and follow us as we continue to advocate for change and speaking truth to goodness.